Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how I implement the 12-week year goal setting process using Notion. As is so often the case with these videos, I'm finding this is going to be a two-part video. The first part I'm going to be basically just explaining the gist of the 12-week year goal setting and how I implement the methods within Notion. And then part two, I'm actually going to be going through all of my personal 12-week year goals. You'll see some of them by looking through the later parts if you want to get ahead of the game. But largely, I'll just be going through them more in depth in the second video, just because I was already talking for like 20 minutes before I even got to that part. So stay tuned for that. If you want to see that video, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a video. While we're on that topic, in case you're new here, my name is Ciara. I'm a third year PhD student in Dublin, Ireland in computer science, and my content is all around being productive while doing a PhD. And what I'm sort of realizing is I think there'll be a lot of you here that aren't necessarily into the PhD content and are more here for the productivity and planning and goal setting content, and that is amazing. So for the Notion template, which will be a big feature of this video and the following video, I will have a new version linked down below, which is just the sort of goal setting planning stuff and not really the PhD stuff. So if you're already a purchaser of the PhD version, you'll have all of this included anyways. So if you've already purchased the PhD version, you don't need to go and get this new version. Don't worry about that. The new version is only for people who have not yet purchased the PhD version and don't want the PhD version and just want the goal setting and planning version. I hope that makes sense. If you have previously purchased any of my Notion templates, you don't need to go ahead and purchase again. You will get the current version of your template if you just will go to the Gumroad link that you previously got for your purchase and refresh. If you've lost that email, just send me an email and I'll sort you out, don't worry. I'm seeing that my previous video on this, and I'll have the sort of videos linked down below, is starting to do quite well. Again, it's just this time of year where everyone's looking to goal set, and it's definitely a time where people make a lot of mistakes with goal setting and don't really know how to take action toward their goals. And the 12-week year process I find really helps with sort of removing any of that sort of uncertainty of what you should do. And anyways, that video is doing quite well, even though it's literally one of my first videos. It's pretty bad in terms of quality, but the actual information I think is good, but like aesthetically it disturbs me. So I think it was good to do sort of a bit of an update on the 12-week year process and how I now implement that in Notion, since before it was all paper planning. So first things first, we're going to be talking very briefly about the overall sort of 12-week year as a book. I definitely would recommend checking out this book. I think book summaries, and I'm going to give probably a very, very brief summary of the sort of main concepts and how I use them in Notion. But I do think it's always good to have a listen to a book or read a book for your own self, because there'll always be different parts of the book that resonate with different people. And there'll be a lot of stuff that I left out because it didn't necessarily speak to me, but it might speak to you. I listened to it again yesterday in the time that I was out for a walk, making dinner, having dinner and that kind of thing. Like I listened to a good proportion of it just to refresh my memory, because there will be things that since the last 2 years since I read it that have changed, or I have maybe almost sort of forgotten the importance of. So the idea of 12-week goals and 12-week goal setting, quarterly goals, which they don't really like us saying in the book, but that's sort of what they are. The idea of periodization, which is very common concept in sort of athletes and people like really high performers, is that you will focus on one skill for a period, possibly around 12 weeks, before moving on to the next skill, and each time you're sort of leveling up. And that should be a similar thing with our goal setting. So if you have a goal to, be that girl or guy or whoever who goes out and runs 5k every day, but at the moment you have like terrible posture, you can't just go out and start running if you have other things that you need to work on to get there. And that's one of my goals at the moment. You'll see me sort of talking about that in a while. I have certain like problems and things I need to develop before getting to that point. That's really important to be aware of, that there are levels to our goals. You can't just try to be getting to this sort of level 4 when you're actually at the ground. And that's what you'll see as well with my goals. So this first quarter of the year, I'm focused on foundations and building a good foundation in all of the different areas of life so that I can build on them. And I have these really, really big goals and dreams for the different areas of my life, but I cannot do them yet until I start building a good foundation that I can work from. Because yeah, I probably could spend the next 12 weeks working really hard in one of these areas and neglecting literally everything else in my life and getting to that point, but it wouldn't have an overall good payoff if I've let everything else sort of go. So what I'm focused on doing this 12 weeks is to build really good systems, routines, I suppose just general foundations in my work and in my life. So there's a couple of key sort of principles and disciplines. And so there's a few different steps with the system, and so I'll be talking about each of those as they relate to the Notion template, and I'll also be talking about how I bring in some other common productivity books and ideas, because I've definitely been experimenting with these systems a lot over the last 2 years. I now implement things like Getting Things Done, Atomic Habits, Rest. I'm probably not going to talk hugely about that today. And the book In the Flow. Again, I'm probably not going to talk a huge amount about that today, but the first two, Getting Things Done and Atomic Habits, have definitely sort of woven their way into my goal setting, and I'll be talking about how I connect all of these in the Notion template. With the 12-week year goal setting system, the first will be creating a compelling vision for your life, which will help you basically decide what goals you actually need to set, because you're basically always going to be trying to get to that vision. The way you would do this would be to really think about what is it that you want your life to look like in the long term, like ages from now, 5 years plus. And you want to really look at the different areas of your life, you know, your work, your social life, your family life, relationships, health, and see what is it that I would like each of those categories to look like. Do you want to be that person who goes out and runs every day and does yoga every day, and you know, you've got a really successful business and you sort of work from home and do little bits here? You know, if you have a dream life, and to be honest, the great thing about this is you can create several versions of what your dream life might look like, but it's important to just have something that you can look at and be like, this is where I'd like to be. If you look back at any old visions, you should hopefully find that you still have that same, you might not necessarily want that same thing, but the sort of underlying thing that you wanted is the same. And I have done a full sort of 2021 reflection, 2022 intentions, I guess, looking at the previous year and the next year, and it's really good to do these things together. So think about where you are now, what you've just been through, and what isn't going well as well. So that's a really important thing from the reflections, is if there's any open loops or anything that you're still not feeling good about, that might be a good idea of where we're first going to start. But for the moment, just go through all that reflection, go through all of the dream sort of setting of what you would like your life to look like. And I think that's where some people really miss the mark with goal setting, especially if you're watching all of this goal setting content at this time of year. There's so much of it around that you see somebody else's goal and you think, oh yeah, that's a good goal, I should probably have that as well. And you just start adding these goals to a list of resolutions that probably don't have that much meaning for you. And it means that when you go to actually try and achieve this, you won't, because you really don't care about that or those goals, and they don't really connect to your long-term vision. So it's so important to do this step before thinking about the goals themselves. That's part one, is creating a compelling vision for your life. Part two is developing your 12-week plan. So what it is that you want to achieve in the next 12 weeks in the different areas of life, and basically deciding the big goals that you want to get done in these next 12 weeks. And this will definitely include a lot of sort of key projects and actions that you'll need to take. So basically just making a list of all of the things that you'll need to do to achieve your 12-week goals at this time. And then the next part will be setting up the process to actually achieve this. So this will be creating some sort of weekly plan that takes into account time for each of these goals. You might have some weekly habits or daily habits that you need to incorporate into your life. And again, I'll be showing all of how I sort of track this in Notion, basically setting up your processes for how you're going to achieve this. So if there are some things that are more like projects that have actions and iterations, basically putting time in your weekly calendar for when you're actually going to work on those and making sure that you do that. After that, what you need is a good way to actually monitor your progress. And so many people fall down on this hurdle because they set goals and then they have no way of really tracking their goals. So you might have something that is tangible, like, you know, getting to 20k subscribers or whatever, but only tracking that isn't going to really help you realize how well you're doing with regards to your goals. So it's not enough for me to just sit here and track my subscribers and say, oh, it's not growing. I need to have some way to track what I'm doing to improve that. So if I've put down things like film and edit, upload 2 videos a week, and I don't do that, that's what I really need to be looking at, is what have I been doing to contribute to that on a weekly basis. So what have I said I'm going to do, and what have I actually done? So again, I'll talk about all this. So basically finding the way to really track your progress here and decide how well you've done. You can put together sort of a culmination of how well you've done on your weekly actions and review those on a weekly basis. And I think probably it's going to end up being sort of a third video, which will be around actually using your time well and planning into your week the time for these actions, making sure that you're intentional with your time and not wasting your time. This is going to definitely come, I don't know if it's going to be a video or several videos or what, but I think that is sort of a separate thing for me to discuss, not just the sort of tracking system that I will be talking about now. And lastly, we'll just be staying accountable and committed. I think looking at your sort of how well you've done each week is definitely important, but can also help to involve some sort of accountability partner to work with. So tell people your goals. I obviously have told all of you my goals by the time of the second video, and if I don't do those, you'll know all about it. So that's pretty much it. Okay, let's get into how I implement the 12-week year goal setting process and principles in Notion. Okay, so just a brief mention, if you're on the old Notion template, you have to basically check out your Gumroad link from your previous purchase and then click the receipt link that you had from before, and it'll take you to the new version of the dashboard and the options and all of that. So just to mention, and to mention as well, I'll be keeping sort of regular updates to the Notion template, so just check out that link every once in a while. I'll date the update so that you know, okay, I got the last update and there's been no update since, so there's no update. But just so that everybody is aware, that's what I will be doing. So this is the reflection and goal setting section. So I've gone through the 2021 reflections and 2022 intentions in full detail in a different video, so I'm not going to do that now, but this is sort of the idea for when you're trying to create the vision. You can look at all of the different areas of your life and basically look back at the wins, but the things you really enjoyed about the year and the things that have you still sort of freaking out a bit, and then you can also look forward to the next year and basically try and create some sort of vision for the next year and what you really would like to see for the end of next year. This is what you would have liked to see at the end of the year. So this is a vision paragraph. Obviously you could create some sort of vision board with images, and again I talked about that in the other video, but I definitely work better with the sort of concrete written out statements, and that's what I chose to do. So this is just my sort of 1 year vision really for what I'd like it to look like at the end of next year, but you should also have some long-term vision stored somewhere where you can basically track what you would like the long-term elements of each of these to look like in the long term. Moving on to the Q1 2022 goals, so our 12-week goals. Essentially, the first thing that I'm going to do is just explain this sort of 12-week year template and all of the different steps, and then I'm going to go through each of my goals in detail. So I have different ones for each category of life. You can adjust these yourself. Most of these are very general, but a few are specific to me, and that would be my PhD and career, business, and then my brand. So the way this works, I first have our 1 to 2 year vision. So that's something that's been set up in the 2022 sort of intentions, and you could also have your long-term vision in here as well. But basically you just want to have something that you're looking towards, and then you want to start thinking about, okay, what are the first steps that I need to take? So as I mentioned, my Q1 focus is really on foundations. So there's so many things that I want to do. I have so many ideas coming in of things that I really, really want to do in my life, in my PhD, in my business, and I can't do those until I have a really good foundation for everything else sorted. For me, you may already have great systems in place and you may be able to just sort of get started with everything else, but I right now need to sort out some foundational elements to each of these before trying to build. And that's one thing that last year I was just constantly building in different areas, and that left me with this big feeling of scrambling and not really being sort of aware of what's going on with different things, and definitely letting things slip, letting things sort of go in different areas. So I want to just have a good foundation for all of these areas before moving on. So I have my quarter one focus. That's what I want to achieve in that area of life in terms of building the foundation for these next 12 weeks. And then I have why do I care? That's not necessarily for every goal. There might be some that you think is super obvious, but it definitely can help to just make your goal more tangible and sort of really say, okay, what is it that this is going to bring me? And that sort of, again, is relating back to the vision. So how this will affect your long-term vision, why you need to take this step, especially when doing foundational things. It can be really hard to do them and not focus on the next things, which are the exciting things. So I definitely feel that this can help. So then it comes down to what are the things that we need to do to actually get there? So what would be the steps that we need to take? And these are going to be your actual actions that are associated with your goals. So there is a number of different things that will come into play. So if you have just one single task that you need to do for your goal, and that's a once-off task, you might just have that on your task list. But a lot of the time with goals, there's usually several steps with these tasks. It's not just a one-time thing. So these will be projects then. So for example, if you are wanting to start going to the gym regularly, then you will need some sort of project for actually getting your gym membership set up. And that is probably going to be a multi-step process. So that would be your first step, would be some project called gym membership. And task one might be investigate different gyms in the area. And there will be several tasks added on to that as you go along the process. But that's going to be an initial step to get you to your exercising goal. And the problem, if you have some sort of goal like that, where it is an exercise-based goal, if you don't have the initial step, like what is the actual thing you need to do right now to start? Like you can't go and start going to the gym if you don't have a gym membership. So you need to think, what are the actual first things I need to do before I can do this properly, if that makes sense. And that's sort of bringing in the getting things done method, is that when you're trying to do something, when you're trying to change something, you'll always have in your mind, okay, yeah, I need to go to the gym. And that's what you're thinking that is the important thing. But if you haven't thought about the next action, it will make it a lot harder to go to the gym because you don't have your gym membership. So I hope that makes sense. So this is where we're bringing in this sort of getting things done methodology, is to think about what are all of the projects that I need to take on to achieve this goal. So what will be the multi-step processes that I need to do to actually get there? And then what are the associated tasks that I have with those that I need to complete? And so these projects and tasks will all be tracked in our getting things done, sort of all of our projects and tasks. So I'll come and show you that just so that you can see how that looks. So for this one, I know there's quite a lot there, so I'll just show very briefly. So all of my projects and tasks. So I have currently 31 projects, and only one of these is related to last year, and that's because something I've been procrastinating. But everything else, these 30 projects, are all of the projects related to all of my goals that I have for Q1. And so you can see I have like related to quarterly goals here. Pretty much all of these are filled in. This is actually not current. So 30 projects, 29 of which are related to my quarter one goals. Only one of them is a last year one, so we just won't talk about that. And then I have all of these tasks that are related. So I have about 51 tasks that are related to these projects above. And that is pretty crazy. I know it can be very overwhelming to look at, but there'll be certain things in here that are quite quick and that you can sort of go through. So for example, we've got stuff in our home category that are things I just need to go and buy. So like all of these things are online shopping things. I could probably get most of those done in about an hour, and that would be like 10 things off the list. So it's just about having somewhere to really track all of your actions and all of the projects that you have. And it can feel a bit overwhelming. I do have other videos talking about like managing the task list, so I probably need to do another one of those again soon, but just to mention that this is how these are all tracked. But a lot of the time what you'll do is you'll focus on a context, and you will just focus on trying to get the tasks done. So if you're on your phone, you get all your phone tasks done. If you're doing emails, you get all your emails tasks done, all of those types of things. If you're doing errands, you try and do all those together. So I'll have a relevant video linked down below, but these are all my projects for Q1 2022. I'm pretty sure I've been saying 2021 this whole video. Yikes. So Q1 2022, these are all the projects that I foresee happening this quarter, and I will be updating you along the way to see how many of these I end up getting done. So that's how all those are tracked. But you may find that not all of these are in fact projects and actions. So it's not like when you're saying, okay, go to the gym 3 times a week. That's actually not a project, and it's not an action because you can't just tick it off and it's done. It's more of a habit. So this is where we start to bring in sort of the atomic habits ideas. So just to say, I need to add some like emojis here to make these a bit nicer, but I just wanted to show you what I've really got going on here. So yeah, okay, so I'm in the health and wellness one. So the health and well-being. So weekly habits, and actually these are daily habits, but I'll show you sort of how these are. So this is just to connect the habits. I just add them in here. So if I want to add, let's just say I want to add a new project here. So gym membership. This will then, actually I do need to add a new thing because I realized the other day that I actually can't go to the gym just yet. I've signed up for my thing, and then I add a task called gym. I've got these templates in here, so that means that when you set up sort of a new project, you can just instantly put in health and well-being, and that will mean you add with the emoji just so it looks a bit nicer. And then I've got the same thing for any of our tasks. If you have sort of a certain type of task, so a phone call, that will definitely be on phone, and then that just puts in the phone emoji. It's just something so small, but it looks a lot better to me when I have all my tasks like that. So that's how you set up a new project and task, but you can also obviously do that in the Minesweep or in the tasks and actions section. You can do that separately. And then the same thing for adding a habit. So let's say habit is go to the gym. And that will automatically go in there, and we'll see that down below. So I also have monthly habits. So that's if I do have anything. This should not be here. Oh yeah, no, it should. So this is anything that needs to happen on a monthly basis, and then this is anything that needs to happen on a daily or weekly basis. So where those are then tracked will be in our monthly review and in our weekly review. I'll talk about the weekly review just because that is more interesting. So this is then bringing in the next step of the system, which is the sort of weekly plan. Okay, so sorry for the switch up and the angle. There is somebody doing like leaf blowing and stuff outside, so here we are. And it's been several hours, so we'll see where we are. I think the last thing I was talking about was getting onto the sort of weekly habits. So if there's stuff related to your goals that are things that need to be happening on a weekly or a daily basis. So for example, I have things like in my business, sending out reminders each week, getting my inbox to 0, that's an everyday task. Checking in with my teachers, that's once a week. Checking up on the students once a week. For health and well-being, doing a PT session once a week, doing cardio 5 days a week, resistance training 4 days a week, stretching every day, flossing every day, reflection every day. You know, so there's all these sort of habits that we'll have as part of our goals, and to track these, I think this can be quite overwhelming to see all of these habits. So I don't even know how many I have here. Let's just see. 33 habits, either on a daily or a weekly basis, and that can be quite overwhelming. And so one thing just to mention is that I don't necessarily feel like you have to focus on only a couple of these areas of life. If there's something small that you can do now, I think it's worth doing. So that's just one way that I slightly differ from the 12-week year, in terms of I do feel like it's okay to be making small progress to all of your goals, especially when it's something like something small that you can do and just incorporate into a routine. So for example, part of my finances would be to like have budgeting and saving, and doing a weekly meal plan and meal prep can really help with that. And that's not something that's huge because it's added into something else that I'm already doing. So this is bringing in principles of the Atomic Habits book. So the idea around Atomic Habits is to try and stack new habits that are really quick actions on top of pre-existing habits. So if there's something that you do in the morning, then you can add on to that a few more little bits to make sort of a routine of habits. And same way, for example, I have some things that are only on a Sunday and some things that are only on a Friday afternoon and things like that. And I do think, so seeing all of these can be really overwhelming. And so I'll have a copy of these in my sort of overall dashboard for a given day so that I can take a look at these. And I do think it's very overwhelming to see all of these at once. So what I would do would be either to filter by a certain one. So if you can see, I have a couple of different versions here. So here's the morning routine one. So I look and I only have the morning routine actions, and then I can go in each day and just check them off. So that's one option, but it means switching a lot between them. The other option would be to do a grouped view where you can see each part bit by bit. So for example, I have just the morning routine there, so I can do all my morning routine stuff. And then when I'm done with all my morning routine stuff, I can close that out and just open up my afternoon routine stuff so that I'm ready for that. And it means when it's not happening, I can just sort of ignore this and basically just not pay attention to it. So that's the other option. And I think that's just a really better way than trying to look at all these habits and think, oh, did I do this one today or not? Did I get this done this week? So especially for like Sunday habit, which will be sort of my weekly reset. So, and spending time with my family. So doing family dinner, calling my dad and my stepmom, doing my chores, doing my meal planning and meal prepping, batching all my content and uploading YouTube videos. So I think those things, it can definitely be a lot, but once you're putting together these routines around your habits, it can really improve things. So, oh, I need to add that in. Well, this was actually a fake one, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And yeah, so that I think really, really helps. And what you'll see here with these weekly actions is that as I tick these off, there's a little progress bar for how well I'm doing. So if I did 7 of these in the week, then I get 100% on the goal. And so this is the next part of the 12-week year system, which is to actually monitor your progress towards your goals. And this will be done in several ways. So firstly, through any sort of input variables. So that will be, are you actually doing the things that you said you were going to do to get these goals achieved? So that will be your weekly actions, such as these, as well as any monthly actions that you might have as well. So I have all of these sort of monthly actions for my business, for my own personal planning. And again, there's a lot of things there. So what I would do is just filter these to have just whatever planning mode I'm in. So I'd probably batch these together to do my monthly review for my business all in one go, do all my monthly planning all in one go, and then my personal reviews all in one go, just so that it's not too much to look at like this. So that's just basically one of the ways that we can track things. So are you doing the things that you said you were going to do? Another way you could track would be looking at your projects and actions and seeing, have I been making progress towards these? Have I been actually doing actions towards these? And so that would also be another thing you could track. So how many of my actions did I complete this week or this month? And you're meant to basically review this on a weekly basis during the 12-week year process to make sure that you are keeping yourself accountable week on week, and not just at the end of 12 weeks realizing, oh, I didn't actually do any of those things, but doing it on a weekly basis and seeing what is my progress. And then the other thing will be to look at any sort of output variables. And this, I'm not really sure, like I know I should be doing it every week based on the 12-week year. I don't know if that's super realistic for me. And I sort of sometimes feel like looking at things every single week maybe isn't always the best way to do it. So these are more so like, I suppose, longer term things in my mind. But you could definitely switch this out to be a weekly thing. So these are all these sort of output variables. So what are you actually looking at on the output side of things? So the profit of my business, the number of students we have, the number of successful performances we've done, and then in terms of fitness, so my flexibility, or any measurements that I have with regards to my fitness. So if I've done a fitness test and seeing have I improved my fitness. Mood, which would be a bit more subjective, so am I feeling better? So that's an output variable which is likely contributed to by my input of actually exercising and eating well, and that. Personal growth would be the number of tasks I completed. So because I'm trying to get better at completing tasks, it'll be the number of tasks I completed. So basically just saying like what is the actual numbers here. So these should all be very sort of heavily number based, and you can see your progress week on week. So for example, my brand stuff, it's like AdSense revenue, Reels views, Notion template sales, subscribers revenue, all of that, and basically just seeing how am I actually getting there. So you should do a review each week for sure, looking at like what proportion of your tactics that you did, and then also looking at these metrics. But personally, I'm going to do it every month. Sorry, not sorry to the 12-week year, but I'm not sure. I'm going to see if I can incorporate this into my weekly review and see if this is something that I can do on a weekly basis. But at the moment, I'm not super sure if I can. And I think that's okay. Another thing that would be good to do on sort of a monthly basis to check in on these goals would be looking at just a reflection on how you're doing on the goals. So maybe rating yourself in each of the areas of life and in terms of the goals that you've set and how you're doing, say what's going well and what's not going well. And I think making slight adjustments at this time can be good. But in the 12-week year, they typically recommend that you don't change your methods basically as you're going along, because you can't really judge if the output is changing if you're not actually doing the input variables. But what I think is good to do in terms of changing the actions is if you literally realize it's not feasible to do these actions, then you might need to make sort of an adjustment to what you are doing. That is it for this video. Be sure to stick around for part 2, which is going to be going through my 12-week goals and the 30 projects and 50 plus actions that I have planned for the next 12 weeks. I'm sure the action list will go on and on, but yeah, 30 projects around, that's what I'm expecting to do in these 12 weeks. And I'll be detailing all of those for you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to my wonderful members as always, and I will see you all in the next video.